30s are an interesting period in our lives. Having recently celebrated my last day of being in my 30s, it got me reflecting a lot about that decade of my life. For me, it was a decade in my life where life's biggest celebrations and tragedies occurred. I've made some of my biggest financial mistakes in my 30s, but at the same time, I was able to grow my net worth by multiple folds. And I've also seen people around me who, through some unfortunate life decisions, were led down a pathway that led them to financial ruins. So in this video, I want to share with you some habits that you want to cultivate in your 30s to help you move towards a path of being a millionaire. Hi, if you're new to the channel, my name is Tay from Financial 30’s, where we learn to grow our wealth slow and steady. The first millionaire habit that we want to really cultivate in our 30s is to build solid career capital. Cal Newport, the author of So Good That They Can't Ignore You, defines career capital as this: the skills that you have that are both rare and valuable that can be used as leverage in defining your career. When we talk about personal finance and growing our net worth, it's important to talk about budgeting and investing. But the key fuel to start all of that begins with income. If you have low income, it's really hard to jumpstart your pathway towards growing your net worth. You can only cut so much from your budget. And if you don't have a decent amount of capital you can invest into the market, it doesn't matter how much returns you get on your investment. A 100% return on $10 will only be $10. And therefore, you must have solid income, and that starts with solid career capital. Something that you can offer to the market in return for high income and salary. I've seen too many people who are still exploring career options far into their 30s. They're still trying out this and that without really sticking to one, giving it enough time and persistence to maximize its income potential. I know people who have tried 5 different career paths, spending money in education, but still not having made much traction in any of them in their mid-30s. And without a strong career path, your income potential is limited. And this limits your ability to save and invest more towards building wealth. On the other hand, I also know of many other individuals who persisted in investing in their career path throughout their 30s and have sometimes doubled or tripled their income because they were able to build a solid foundation of career capital. I know of a friend who is a well-established accountant with solid experience at a reputable accounting firm. From his position, he has the potential to leverage his career capital to negotiate for higher salary or even go part-time to spend more time with the family. I also know of another individual who is a specialized registered nurse who has solid experience in bedside nursing at a large, well-established hospital. She has the ability to leverage her career capital at any other similar hospitals for better pay or better hours. Build your career capital, and as Steve Martin, the comedian, famously said, be so good they can't ignore you. The second millionaire habit that we want to cultivate in our 30s is this concept of learning to rest. This may seem contradictory to the first habit that I just talked about, but I would actually argue that they're complementary. It's assumed that in order to build a solid career, we must only hustle and hustle. Yes, there is some truth to that, but in order to really build and sustain solid career capital, it's just as important to learn this concept of resting. For me, this was a habit I had to develop much later in life because it didn't make sense to me when I was younger. When we're in our 20s, we're hungry for progress. When I graduated college, I was eager to jump into adulthood. I wanted to prove to the world that I was an adult, that I had succeeded in life. And I thought the way to success was just to hustle. I gave 110% every day and in everything. Resting was for losers, and I wanted to be a winner. However, as I got older, I learned that going 110% at all times was not only physically and emotionally impossible, it wasn't very smart. We tend to treat our minds and bodies like machines. We think we can focus for 10 hours straight when science teaches us that that is not possible. We think we can work effectively for 12 hours straight without rest when science shows us that our effectiveness actually diminishes after just a few hours. In the book The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Lohr and Tony Schwartz, the two performance psychologists try to identify the key difference between the greatest performing tennis players and the good but not the greatest tennis players. Interestingly, they couldn't find any significant difference in their skill sets or ability. However, the key difference came when they observed how each player was using the time between points. The greatest players used this key time between points when they would walk back to the baseline, bounce the tennis ball, and get ready for the match by effectively resting. They mastered the ability to lower their heart rate, take a deep breath, and renew themselves for the next match. Whereas most lower-ranked players had no recovery routine at all. When hooked up to an EKG, the lower-ranked players' heart rates remained amped at high level, while the greatest players were able to regulate their heart rates between the match and the time between points. They had mastered the ability to effectively rest, so when it came down to the actual match, they were able to give their 110%. By the end of the game, the greatest players didn't beat their opponents most often because of skill, but through sheer exhaustion. The lower-ranked players didn't know how to regulate their energy level. They were thoroughly spent by the time they were well into the game. High performance in tennis and in life know how to regulate their energy level through effective rest. They know how to renew themselves effectively, so when it comes to game time, they can focus and win. We live in a world that celebrates work and activity, ignores renewal and recovery, and fails to recognize that both are necessary for sustained high performance. The third millionaire habit that we want to cultivate in our 30s is to treat our bodies like a Ferrari. You might be thinking, what does our body have to do with becoming a millionaire? A lot, actually. Despite what many of us may believe, fitness is tightly correlated with finance. When our bodies aren't well taken care of, it will not only impact our healthcare costs, but also our ability to work more effectively and in the long run, earn more. I've seen too many of my friends who approach their health in their 30s like they are in their 20s. Eating anything, sleeping late, not getting enough rest. It not only affected the way they looked and felt, but overall life as well. A sure way to ensure we treat our body like a Ferrari is to develop a solid fitness regimen. And I want to specify that it is something that should be age appropriate. Your fitness regime in your mid to late 30s shouldn't be the same one you followed when you're 21. I don't know how many times I pulled my muscle because I was trying to run or lift the same way I did in my 20s. Or try it the same way that I did when I was in my 20s. My stomach didn't appreciate me very much that day. Consider your body as a machine that needs to be well maintained and taken care of. And when you develop a diet and a workout plan that is appropriate for your age, it will keep that machine operating like a Ferrari instead of a rundown old beater that will break down at the first speed bump. For me, I have pretty much cut out processed food from 80% of my diet, and my exercise is focused on minimizing injury rather than getting bigger or faster. If we don't take care of the one body that we have, it doesn't matter if we have $1 billion, because we won't have the body to enjoy it. The fourth millionaire habit that we want to cultivate in our 30s is to know our enough. Kurt Vonnegut, American author known for novel Slaughterhouse-Five, recounted a conversation he had with Joseph Heller, another famous author who wrote Catch-22 when he was at a party thrown by a billionaire. He said to Joe, "Joe, how does it make you feel to know that our host only yesterday may have made more money than your novel Catch-22 has earned in its entire history?" And do you know what Joseph Heller said? He said that he had something that the billionaire can never have. Enough. We spend much of our 20s trying out new things, making a lot of mistakes and hopefully learning from them. But as we get into our 30s, we want to start clearly identifying what is most important to us and how those priorities define our ideal lifestyle. Because if we don't identify our enough to keep us satisfied, enough to remind us what our priorities are, and enough to keep us from envying those who have more than us, the desire to have more will always keep us poor, regardless of how much money we have. Because no matter what and how much we have, because we've never defined our enough, nothing will ever be enough. Even when we have everything we need, we will feel poor. However, if we can just build the knowledge that we have enough to keep a roof over our head, enough to put food on our table, and enough to enjoy the simple luxuries that living in 21st century can provide, we will always be rich. The fifth millionaire habit that we want to cultivate in our 30s is to not care about what other people think. If you've ever heard of anyone talk about their regrets in their deathbed, this is a common statement. Bronnie Ware worked in palliative care for many years and wrote a book titled The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, listing out the most common regrets expressed to her by the people she cared for. The number one statement she heard was, "I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." Too many of us live our lives thinking too much about what other people think. I struggled for too many years trying to please others. My parents, my teacher, my boss, my colleagues, rather than spending more time looking to myself and identifying what I wanted. As children, we do need adults to provide us their opinions so that we have something to model our lives against. However, as we get older, we must learn to find our own pathway and have the courage to make our own decisions, even though it may deviate from what others expect of us or what the society expects of us. My wife and I faced this when we decided to cohabitate with my parents. The common American dream story is that once you graduate from college, you move out of the house, you get married, buy a white picket fence house, and have 2.5 kids. We deviated from the standard narrative when we decided that it would be best for us financially as well as emotionally to live in a multi-generational household well into our adulthood. Many people looked at us in a weird way, and we received a lot of interesting comments. Couldn't we afford our own place? Do we still need the support of our parents as adults? Do we know how to raise our own kids? However, despite the ups and downs, we stayed on the path, and today we have achieved more financially than we could have ever had if we had not entered into this non-traditional, multi-generational living. Don't care what other people think. Life is too short. The sixth millionaire habit that we want to cultivate in our 30s is to be wary of debt. In business school, I took a class where we discussed the different types of debt. There was a spectrum where we lined up all the different types of debt, from good debt to bad debt. Good debts were debts that allowed us to invest in ourselves so we can earn more in the future. Think college or graduate school education. Or allow us to purchase assets that appreciate in value. Think home purchase. Bad debts are the opposite. These are debts associated with just pure consumption. Think credit card debt, consumer loans, or payday loans. The basic concept was that as long as we stayed on the side of good debt and avoided bad debt, then we were doing well. Most of us walked away from the class with the notion that student loans and home mortgages were a good thing and we shouldn't be guilty about having them. They were a normal way of life. However, there is a danger to just accepting this idea without questioning some of the assumptions. You can see this just by observing the increasing student loan crisis in the United States and the ridiculous home prices. The danger of accepting that debt is okay and is a normal way of life makes us numb to the real danger of borrowing money. When I was sitting at the financial aid office for my graduate school, I didn't really comprehend the amount of money I was borrowing. I believed that good debt like a student loan was essentially investing in my future, so what was the harm? However, this thought led me to borrowing more money than I needed, and my wife and I spent the next 3.5 years afterwards paying the price. Don't accept debt as a normal way of life. You're essentially playing with fire, and it's the easiest and quickest way to get yourself into financial trouble. The 7th millionaire habit that we want to cultivate in our 30s is to hold cash always. Warren Buffett is known as one of the richest men on earth. At the time of this video, he's worth over $100 billion. However, one of the financial principles that many people are not aware of Warren Buffett is his approach to cash. Warren Buffett and his business partner Charlie Munger have said in their 2014 Berkshire Hathaway annual report that they vowed never to keep less than $20 billion in cash. And when COVID-19 caused a market crash in 2020, Warren Buffett decided to hold more. Actually, way more. $137 billion in cash. While everyone else was panicking from the uncertainty, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger were making their company Berkshire Hathaway even more indestructible in the face of many unknowns. And their cash strategy serves multiple purposes. Not only does it allow them to sleep soundly at night, it allows them to sweep up good deals when they come up. During the financial crisis of 2008, when companies like Lehman Brothers and AIG were at the brink of collapse due to cash issues, Warren Buffett actually made billions through his investments in Goldman Sachs and General Electric. In the same way, we should always keep good enough cash in reserve so that we're never forced to sell stocks or any other assets in a downturn. We may not all have $140 billion like Berkshire Hathaway, but a good starting place is 3 to 6 months of our monthly expenses in readily available checking or savings account. In times of uncertainty like the current COVID crisis in the rocky market, I would go even as far as 12 months of cash. Thank you guys for watching. If you'd like to learn more about the 7 silent money traps to avoid in your 30s, check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.